welcome everyone. This is No Bullshit Gaming Podcast 2.5 Gamer Session number 50. Man, 50. Okay, we are sharing actionable insights, dropping knowledge from our day-to-day user acquisition, game design, and ad monetization jobs. We're definitely not talking about latest industry news because nobody cares. But we are having so much fun. Let's not forget, this is still 4 a.m. conference discussion vibe, but let's not take it so seriously. And today we have a special guest. Last week we had 2 special guests. Now we have 1. Nico, welcome back on the show.
Thank you.
So Nico is working at Bitcraft, but also hosting a podcast. Can you talk about your podcast as well and
Sure.
share some short intro about yourself just to remind us
Sure.
who are you and how amazing you are?
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I thought this was a no bullshit podcast. So
Come on!
How
Come
does
on.
that work?
We love you. We love you.
By the way, super honored that I'm here for the 50th episode. I didn't know you. So you waited to get me on today
of course.
for this recording. I really appreciate that. So a bit more about you asked about the podcasting I do. Actually, now do 2 podcasts. One is me and a buddy. We read books and then we talk about it on a podcast, which is really fun, and it forces us to read books that we otherwise wouldn't. That's less relevant, obviously. The other one is I a few months ago started a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, which I think is related to the topic of the day.
Yeah.
And it's basically a bunch of people that are building games with new technologies. And we have a podcast called the FOGDAO, Future of Gaming podcast, where we discuss how new technologies can be used to build better games. That's the essence of it. And then apart from that, I am also, I would say I spend most of my time as an investor at Bitcraft Ventures. I'm there on our crypto team. And so I look at, everything that uses Web3 technologies in a cool way to do something interesting with games.
Nice. So that's why we're going to talk about some Web3 fun stuff. Jakub was talking about this episode for a week at least. It's already really hyped up, but we are as well. Before we do that, again, thanks for such an amazing feedback during the PGC. Special kudos to Zaair from Miniclip. He approached me on the actual dance floor and said, hey, let's do Jaeger bombs, 3 a.m. Best fucking idea ever. So kudos to you. Special mention to him. And then, I guess see you next week in Barcelona. We are attending Games Forum. Well, I guess it's going to be maybe this week. Depends on when I'm going to publish this. But definitely 8th of February. We have a live session after the day 1. So come on in, grab a drink, have fun, and listen to No Bullshit Insights. We are going to talk about... Well, we don't know what we are going to talk about yet.
We'll prepare something good, though.
Yeah. Felix is sick as fuck, so hopefully you will be in a better shape.
Yeah, 100%.
And also, well, I forgot to actually introduce you guys. So it's not only Nico here, but Jakub, Felix, and myself, Matej. So the usual suspects. And I'm going to hand it over to Jakub because he's eager to start talking about the Web3. Even camera zoomed in on
Zoom
him.
in on the face.
This is even better. I love it.
So I'm scared now.
Oh my God,
scared?
Anyway, for those who didn't listen last year, we did this really, really nice episode with Nico when we went over the Web3 stuff that was happening by then, and it was pretty much after the big peak, and like we were talking what's happening now, what's gonna happen next, especially focus on some stuff as product stuff, how Web3 was changing its kind of business model more from play to earn to play to own to whatever, some kind of a new term that's currently running on the block. Special attention paid to Axie Infinity. And then we are here back again after a lot of stuff happened in the meantime, I would say.
Also, one thing, quick thing. Can you actually, when you ask a question, can you leave a little bit of space?
Yeah, this time,
for Nico to actually...
Like, if you don't take a break after asking questions this time around, I'm gonna stop you.
I listened to the episode today just to remind myself what had happened. So don't worry.
Okay,
This will be better.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, but let's start with like some of the like big things and just go through some of the points that were happening throughout the year, and then we can pretty much comment on those and like put them into context. So I would say like one of the big ones, of course, let's start, would be the collapse of Terra and FTX ecosystems. Terra would be kind of more closer to gaming, I would say, or at least I know more projects that were like dependent on that, and I guess they switched to Polygon or something. And then of course the FTX, which is the as written by the auditor guy, worse than Enron, and like very very big lawsuit happening currently with the guy, and like pretty much everything that you can imagine being pretty much the next Bernie Madoff. So we'll see what happens there. But I guess it put a lot of shade on the whole crypto ecosystem. And yeah, let's talk about that. What are the implications of that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think these are important and relevant discussions to have. So let's start with Terra. I'll approach this in a like, what can we take away from what happened, right? I think with Terra, one of the conclusions we can make, and it's I'm sure this is not new to many people, to a lot of people, that with crypto, when you take the essence of what this new technology, this blockchain technology does, we've now added a way to create scarcity on the internet, something that we couldn't do before, right? This might be something that I talked about last time we sat together as well. But before blockchain, there was no way for me to send you an email with something in it, and when I sent that email, like, I wouldn't have it myself anymore, right? There was no way to really ensure scarcity, at least not trustlessly, right? If I wanted to do that, we had to rely on a third party like a PayPal or like a bank in order to facilitate such a transaction. We now have a way to do that in a decentralized fashion, where we don't have to rely on like one trusted third party. And so what's happening now, especially in the DeFi space, is we're essentially speedrunning the development of a new economic and financial system. So we're looking at how the current financial system in the traditional world works, or TradFi as the crypto bureaus call it. And we're trying to rebuild all that and more using a decentralized infrastructure. And because we're speedrunning things, we're making a lot of mistakes. And I think that's what's happened with Terra. So we built a way to have a stable coin, and we build it we tried to keep that coin stable using an algorithm. And yeah, that didn't work, right? Through a bunch of outside forces, the peg or that algorithm broke, got exploited, and it went all the way down to zero. So
wasn't it the case that the founder of Terra just took all the money and then just ran away?
No, I don't think that was the case. Or at least
that was a different case in Web3. Okay,
it was definitely a rumor, as there are often rumors like that. And obviously, the guy is still pretty well off. But if I'm not mistaken, he either faces jail time charges or might already
South
be
Korea.
in jail.
Yeah, he faces that.
Yeah. So, like, this was definitely not his doing. Like, everything was going fine until it wasn't. And so, as many of these things are. Anyway, so I guess one of the learnings there is, okay, one, we're speedrunning a new financial system, and we're going to make a lot of mistakes, right? There's going to be more of these busts. I can assure you that. The second conclusion we can draw, the second lesson we can take from that is, if you're building a game, realize that the blockchain partner that you choose is a risk, right? And we now see a lot of these blockchains having big, like, they raise a shit ton of money in the bull run when times were good, because they know that this whole ecosystem is cyclical, right? There's huge booms and huge busts, and if it feels like everyone's really bullish on that stuff, it's a good time to raise money, and then make sure you have that when times get tougher. And so there's a lot of money out there, and so now I see a lot of game developers being incentivized to build on certain ecosystems, certain platforms, by grants that are provided by these platforms, these blockchains. I think it's, depending on your situation as a games builder, it's something to take into account and know that unproven systems, unproven blockchains are still risky. I think there's a lot of examples. I think now we saw that there was a major shock with Solana, which brings us to the whole FTX collapse, something that no one really expected again, and it shows that even the more established blockchains are not that safe or secure.
Well, then what should developers do in that case? It looks like everything is super risky.
Well, I would say that there's a few solutions. I would say the older the blockchain, and well, maybe not the older, but if you go to Ethereum layer 1, for example, that's in terms of blockchain after Bitcoin the safest, right? That's one where the chances of Ethereum going down is very, very low, especially compared to any other blockchain built on top of it. So that's solution number one. I would also say that if you're a game, if I would be building a blockchain based game right now, I would probably postpone the decision of what blockchain I would build on as long as I can, right? Obviously, a lot of teams decide to already sell tokens early, which is a practice that I'm not sure. Like, I think is a good practice in every case. I think sometimes it makes sense. I'm not sure if it does always.
Usually, there's no other way to get funding. Keep that in mind.
It is true. It is true, especially today. But then today, just getting funding from anyone, even the public, is not easy. But yeah, so in general, I would say postpone your decision to choose a blockchain to build on as long as you can, because time will tell which ecosystems prove themselves to be more scalable and anti-fragile and
survive.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Nico, I just want to ask as well, these grants that you get for building on different blockchains, what's the whisper number? What kind of amounts are we talking about right now? Because we're facing a recession. What are you must know. What are the amounts?
So I think last year the amounts that I saw being thrown around was ranging from 50 to 250K. So these were the numbers that I was seeing. Sometimes those were cash, sometimes those were tokens that were locked up, and sometimes those were in sort of delayed payment, or you didn't have to pay that much of the first fees that you have to pay for transactions. Recently, we have not seen these players be super active in rounds. But if they were, it was in lower amounts. So I didn't see more than 150, I believe, over the past few months.
Is that for a tie-up as well? So you're tied to that chain for X amount of time, or is it just I can take one and then go to another one the next day and then just make my way through all of them and collecting grants?
These people, I know you guys might think so, but they're not so stupid, right? So there is some kind of
Nobody said that.
No, I see all of you looking at me no. So there is no, I think there's the teams that we speak to. Obviously, there are hundreds of teams building in this space. We don't speak to all of them. We already have a kind of filter. I see decks that I would, I think it would be a waste of time for the entrepreneur and for me to hop on a call just because it's not a fit with what we do. But the ones that we end up speaking to, generally they realize that signing up for one blockchain for eternity or more than, let's say, 1 to 2 years is dangerous, and so they avoid that. So exclusivity, generally they avoid it, and if it's there, it's pretty short term.
Cool. So it's like the mediation wars, I guess, a bit the same, but yeah, some companies don't even offer a tie in there. So yeah, it does happen.
And moving on, or let's say one last tidbit I would add to the Terra thing when we were finishing that one was that, if I understood correctly, Dukwon, the founder, already did the same thing before with Basic Cash, where he also created one failed stablecoin. And then the amounts that he was, the percentage of your kind of rewards, it was something within 20% or something. So I wouldn't totally call it a mistake rather than a scheme going through and you not kind of doing your research well here, which unfortunately during the bull run, that's the default attitude of people throwing money into it. But just saying that, I wouldn't say the whole thing was kind of unpredictable and it failed because of some kind of a magic thing, or like they said that it was a Citadel attack, or other big funds got together and just attacked the ecosystem and everything. It was more of a in the end something like a Ponzi scheme. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of the major selling propositions, you're right, was a 20% return on your stable tokens, UST.
Sound too good to be true. So.
Well, exactly. And, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And it clearly was too good to be true in retrospect. So, yeah, it's something that, there is no such thing as a free lunch, right? There's no such thing as easy money. And if you think you're getting easy money, they're probably in some way taking advantage of you, or you just don't realize the risk of what you're doing.
You are the product usually.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Do we see even bigger fallout out of FTX? Because if I get it right, FTX kind of the collapse of it kind of puts gaming into kind of a more legit category, I would say, because I guess this takes much more shade towards crypto DeFi and like all the other kind of financial based applications or the genre there. Whereas gaming kind of, I would say, avoided a little bit, still suffers from the aftershocks, but is like FTX isn't part of the gaming ecosystem or like Web3 gaming ecosystem. So what do you think about that, or like what are we kind of facing? Because I guess the immediate implications here are that regulation is coming much more faster than before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I think one of the other downsides that I wrote about specifically for FTX is that, Terra was already relatively niche and already, I would say, relatively degen, right? If you were doing something with Terra, you were a bit of a degen, right? You knew what you were doing, you understood the space, and you were willing to, venture away from the safety of Ethereum for like whatever that's worth. I think one of the major issues with what happened with FTX was that it was such a trusted and perceived safe player in the ecosystem. And because of that, there's a lot of people, gamers who were like, hey, there are like pretty interesting games being built on this space, or maybe not, or they just wanted to like get a taste of it, and then they make an account with some company they see an advertisement from at the Superbowl, and they just send a bit of money, and then they buy some Bitcoin, they see it go up, see it go down, but they're essentially doing nothing wrong, right? And essentially the only risk that they should be taking is the risk of their assets that they buy going to zero, but they ended up having counterparty risk, which is the risk of the platform that they're using actually, defrauding them and misusing their funds, which is what happened. Yep. And so I think the perceived safety of crypto by the general public, I think that's probably one of the major major negative effects from what happened with FTX. I also know that we currently see quite a few companies that actually had a lot of their treasury on FTX that are now significant, like in trouble. We saw the Solana ecosystem getting a significant hit because with the very close ties between FTX and Alameda and the Solana ecosystem. And so it did have quite an impact.
It halved, if I understood correctly.
Sorry?
It literally halved at that time, if I understood correctly.
Could be.
The price.
Although I would say that, for me, the price of an asset doesn't really necessarily, or like if the price of a token halves doesn't really mean that ecosystem is suddenly halved in its value or whatever, right? There's obviously a long-term correlation between the strength of an ecosystem and the price of its underlying core assets. But I would say that, similarly to between like that, there's a relation between the stock price of a company and the actual financial viability and health of that company. These things are not perfectly correlated. So yeah, I think a lot of companies are getting in trouble now, right? And I think we haven't seen the full fallout yet. We, over the past weeks, have seen like a little bit of a green week, I would say, in the crypto markets. And, people are like, oh yeah, the bull run is back. It wouldn't surprise me if this is a longer thing. And I'm personally, I don't think we'll get the high spirits during 2023.
My Coinbase portfolio is increasing in the last couple of weeks, so
there you go.
We are back on.
I'm very much in the red, so yeah.
Do you think it's because there's like assumption that Fed will stop tightening so much and actually start cutting rates that this whole thing is kind of based on?
Could be. I don't consider myself a macro guy. There's too much going on in the world, and I just try to focus on what's in front of me, which are like small, early stage Web3 gaming companies.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on then. Axie Infinity.
Yes.
He
said with a smile on his face.
Yeah, you want to beat the dead horse, of course.
No, like I'm not beating the dead horse. Like last time when we were talking about it, I know you said that Axie would be, if you had to pick like the best Web3 or crypto game of last year, which I think still holds true in a way that everything else either died or haven't materialized yet. So I guess that checks out. The question is, what's Axie doing now? Because if I was looking around, let's say there's just those two charts that I put there. to kind of see like what's the current engagement on their Reddit, I guess their community, because I often went to their Reddit, and it was really good in a way to kind of see what's the mood, what's the vibe, what problems people are currently getting, like what's the problems between scholars and the ones that are pretty much having the rents and stuff like that. But if I understood, it's kind of died down, and the free-to-play version of the game didn't really catch up. So my guess is, I know that Sky Mavis announced a lot of these kind of partnerships, and like pretty much we have the money, you bring us content, and we give you Axie IP, stuff like that. But also, if I understood, like it's either stuff is being built up or haven't materialized yet. So what's the current state of Axie Infinity?
So from my perspective, I think I believe there's like 120,000 DAUs, I believe, on playing Axie Infinity. Yes, if I'm not mistaken. It could be that it's MAUs and it's like 40K, but
that sounds pretty high.
Yeah, they stop kind of giving the numbers in the Excel sheet at some point. When they turn off the SLP.
So I would say it's at least 120, because I know the 120K number.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure if it's DAUs or MAUs. Anyway, so which I would say in like what you guys are used to, it's nothing. It's peanuts, right? But for the Web3 gaming space, it's okay. Sorry?
Mice nuts.
Mice nuts. That's the word.
Say.
Yeah. That's the gaming the gaming industry term for not a lot of small amount mice nuts. So okay, so in terms of like from the perspective of Web3 games, it's actually pretty decent. I do think that the Sky Mavis team, so Sky Mavis is the company behind Axie Infinity, I think their perspective has opened up, and so they're building two things. I think they're building the Axie Infinity's like IP and ecosystem, not essentially around one core game, which is the like battle game that they have now, the card battle game that they have now. But there will be more games around that and around that IP. They're building games themselves. They're also working with third parties to build Axie IP, and so Axie based games, and they're also working with third parties to build non-Axie related games that live on the Ronin blockchain. So, one of the big shifts that they did, which ended up being a good decision, was that they spun up their own sidechain, which is called the Ronin blockchain, which allowed them to avoid scalability problems on other blockchains. So
wasn't that exploited?
Yeah,
the bridge was exploited. Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So exactly. So in the end, the blockchain actually never really stopped working in a way. It was just a hack of like a non-blockchain related hack, essentially. Interestingly, FTX, the Sky Mavis Ronin hack, and Terra all were mistakes that were non-blockchain related. So there was never like the blockchain actually at any point has ever stopped
human
working.
factor.
Exactly. Of
Human
course.
factor.
I still believe some of the founders of Sky Mavis just stole that money. I still think.
Okay.
Of course. That's a pure speculation, obviously.
I don't think so. But
that would be just
I'll let you believe it, Matej.
Yeah, it would be great plot for a movie.
And if Nico, if you would have to guess, what would be the state of Axie Infinity by the end of this year? Like let's say we were doing last year. So we know what we're talking about next year.
Is that going to be my yearly bet, Axie Infinity? If I would open up can I open up my guessing to the more broad Sky Mavis / Ronin ecosystem?
Sure.
Then I think so. I've had public conversation, podcast recordings with some of their growth leads, and so I think one of the challenges, and that's I guess where the three of you might have some insights, is that user acquisition within the Web3 space is challenging. All right, and they are like months or maybe like 6 months ahead of anyone else when it comes to understanding how to
really
onboard people and how to turn that into a sort of publishing play, I would say, almost
like profitable UA.
It's not what I'm saying, but I would say that
that would be very close to
I mean, I believe that part of what Web3 brings to games is increasing willingness to spend of players. So people are willing to spend more on assets that they could either potentially sell or that they could do more things with than they could in centralized.
Yeah, let's call it like additional component of the LTV, I guess.
Yeah, I would say
that's
that
from
exactly.
a marketer's point of view, definitely.
Yeah, and so if we can imagine a world where Web3 games have a higher LTVs, then if you're building within that space and you can compete against companies that don't have that higher LTVs, then obviously you're in a good position. So that's why I think that there might be some potential there. If that like comes to fruition within this year, I don't know, but I do think that the people there are smarter than people think, because everyone just looks at what happened to Axie Infinity and was like, oh, these guys are idiots and they don't know what they're doing, and there's stuff cooking there.
Of course, but to the point, or to your point about Web3 UA is challenging. Of course, it's challenging, and it's more challenging to people who never worked in UA in mobile games, and now they're building Web3 companies. So that's like super hard for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you work in UA in games, then you figure it out quite easily.
Yeah. But to be fair, I spoke to their growth lead, who's called Quinn. I'm blanking on his last name. Are you familiar? Have you spoken to him?
Of course, yeah.
He, at least to me, because I'm a noob, right? He seems to know what he's doing.
Yeah, there are different people who think or seem that they know what they are doing, but just let's say some of the companies out there and their growth leads asked me to be there for a 1 month crash course for how to be a director of UA without zero experience before. So yeah, let's go.
Did you do
let's
it?
call it that way. No.
Why not?
Well, because
Useless.
no. Well, first of all, of course, you can't just progress or just kind of get 10 years of experience into 1 month. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then this person wanted me to pay for this from his pocket and not the company's pocket, so it was more expensive for him or her. Nobody knows who the person is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like kind of part of I think the thing we were talking last time on the podcast, that if you're building Web3 games, of course you're bringing like sweat of knowledge from the Web3 ecosystem and like crypto and stuff like that, but keep in mind that you're still building games in the end.
Yeah.
You still need to have that expertise that all these other people were like evolving through 20 years or something, and it's shifting so fast. So it's as Matej said, like for somebody without zero experience, it's double hard. So
yeah.
You need to speak up, Remo. I'm having trouble hearing you. Yeah.
Okay.
You need to increase your decibels in the post-production. It's not going to be me. It's not now. It's going to be you who suck.
Okay. Anyway, moving on. And when we were talking about the ecosystem, there were the new guidelines from iOS, and we all read them. And to me, at least, like a Web3, let's say, mid-year person, not like a super senior, it sounds to me like they pretty much killed the whole thing in their tracks regarding the, let's say, secondary marketplace features or like any other meaningful features with integration to mobile stores, where they pretty much plainly said that you can just browse the NFTs and that's it. And to me, it sounds like the usual that, oh, you thought we were going to give you our 30% cut? No, we won't. Forget it, and that's it.
Yeah. So, as you guys might know, I'm a strong believer in the potential of this technology, and I don't think it's going anywhere, right? And I think as we've done in the past, we'll find ways around this. And I think if you listen to someone like Gabe Layden, he says if there's a 30% fee, then there's a 30% fee. I'll pay 30% fees on my NFT initial sales, and also pay 30% on the royalties I get from people trading. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is. So I guess that's probably the worst. Well, I guess the worst case scenario is 10 years of Apple not allowing any Web3 related activity, on iOS.
Which won't happen.
Which will happen.
No, it won't happen, man. I'm pretty sure it won't happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I think plan B is that they enforce their 30% cut. And I guess best case scenario is that, at some point, this 30% cut gets lowered by, in broader industry pressures. And
that's the thing that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the only thing that can force them is US regulators, which, of course, like all the lawsuits and everything are ongoing, but it will be like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? Don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
So
maybe.
and actually speaking about that, this is next item on our list. Superbowl is nearing in 10 days, and there's gonna be an ad by the aforementioned Digidaigaku, which they I think they even throw in the number. It was like 7.2 million something for the
For
advertising
that
time.
slot.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're gonna run a Digidaigaku Super Bowl ad during the match.
Mhm.
So I
Of
guess
course. As a Machine Zone like CEO, like they ran this the Machine Zone multiple times before.
yeah, they did that, of course.
He's on
But,
first name basis with everyone who sells the ads. He knows them all.
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
just to frame this a little bit, like this seems to me like one of those like big hopes companies that are like they have senior people from free to play gaming or like gaming whatsoever, and seems like they know what they're doing. To me, it seems that their marketing is working pretty well. Just by looking at the floor price of the Digidaigakus, they're still hovering around 11 ETH, which is like $18K. So no, no shame in saying that this seems that work pretty well for them. But the question is, what will happen afterwards, because they still haven't exited the usual cycle of like propping up the hype yet. Whereas we need to see the product, because we also have another contender down the line, and yeah, want to talk about that more. But yeah, let's talk about Machine Zone a little bit, or ex Machine Zone.
I think
Oh.
there's a lot to like about their approach. If I would summarize what I understand from Gabe Layden's thesis, is that one of his frustrations at Machine Zone was that there was a cap of how much people could spend at once. The good thing about Web3 is there's no cap. You can do whatever the
Yeah.
hell you want. And so, this could also potentially be a sort of solution to the whole iOS problem if you can incentivize a very small minority of your players to be willing to go to other platforms and transact there. Then and you can get them to pay thousands of dollars for certain assets. That's a way to make a living or to make a successful game. And so I think that's probably Gabe Layden's main thesis and why he's so bullish on this new technology. Whether it will play out that way, I don't know. There's another thing that I really like about his approach. One of my frustrations is that, as what I said in the beginning was that for me, blockchain technology is we've invented a new way to transact value over the internet. And it's actually super interesting because we can transact value through fungible tokens, which are similar to dollars or euros or whatever. All right, it's easy for us to count and it's easy for us to measure how much value we transact. But you can also now transact value in non-fungible assets, like a painting or like a piece of art or an in-game asset. And so, historically, game makers have always been super creative when it comes to finding new ways to monetize and create value, and new ways to create new businesses or business models in games, and
especially mobile ones.
Yeah, no, that's true, absolutely. And so one of my frustrations is that I see a lot of experienced Web2 games teams come into the space and just saying, okay, I'm going to take the concept of an NFT and I'm going to just take it and use it in my game. And so I'm going to have my game, and then some of my assets are going to be NFTs. And what I would love it if these teams that are inherently super creative would be willing to not only innovate in terms of game design, but also innovate in terms of NFT design. So, right now we're taking NFTs as is, which is you can send an NFT, you can sell an NFT for any price you want. You can, hold your NFT as long as you want. And there's essentially almost no limitations. But the cool thing is that you can actually program logic inside of your NFT, which could mean that, you want to buy an NFT to support the creation of this game. I'm concerned that you might be a speculator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that you can't sell the NFT that you buy if you've not spent 100 hours inside my game. Like that's something that you can actually program into an NFT without a problem. And so Gabe Layden is actually he has been putting logic inside the game assets. I believe he has added a way to enforce a minimum floor price. So you can't sell this asset for less than X amount of ETH. And so he's willing to experiment with these new technologies on top of experimenting with game design, and that's something I would love to see more gaming teams do.
Yeah, but I think this comes from his and his team's experience in games. Because
agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of these Web3 companies have no idea how to build a game. Absolutely, is great.
I've heard about this, like, I think multiple times, even about stuff like, let's say, the NFT pretty much can be leveled up, can be changed, can be grown as you progress. Like, I remember back in the days, it was called Hex TCG, like this other TCG that split from World of Warcraft guys there, and they ran this kind of a concept of the cards themselves would have stats, like how many other cards you killed, and like it would be all written on that one card, and they would sell them on their internal marketplace. And I think like this would be like the closest to that concept, that whereas like it grows and moves and lives, and it's this one entity that can be sold over, and that's like really good, because in the end, yeah, I also agree that in order for something to work, there needs to be not only gaming innovation, but like business model / NFT / put whatever you want there innovation, which would in the end need to enable new functionality. Otherwise, if you're still using the same functionality, it kind of defeats the purpose, in my opinion. So it's more of a like kind of desperate pivot into Web3, or haven't really worked out something and you slap Web3 on it, which won't work out anyway these days, especially now that the market fundraising is switching to AI, which is going to vacuum clean all the Web3 funding in the end. But yeah, enabling new functionality and experimenting with this, I would say, is the closest way to go that I can see this work out in the short term. Also,
yesterday we discussed with Jakub on our Slovak podcast, obviously, because we love doing podcasts. The fact that Apex Legends now is being closed. People spend
Apex Legends Mobile.
Apex Legends Mobile, yes, fuck ton of money. So players spend fuck ton of money to buy different things. They can go fuck themselves. And I said, look, so this wouldn't happen on the blockchain because they would actually own those things.
Would it?
Or
well, I can already tell you now that the counter argument of Web2 gaming people that hate Web3 would be that, if the game is shut down, well, why the hell would I want to buy your skins, Matej?
True. Yeah, that's what Jakub always said. So if Axie Infinity dies, why would I have the Axie? And my answer to that would be, well, of course it's useless now, but you never know who is going to build anything on top of what is there out. Mm-hmm. So I guess, of course, yeah, you have you have at least something. You can
really
you can wipe your ass with it, of course, but then at least you have it. It's yours.
Man, you're a no bullshit podcast. Like, you have nothing. I'm sorry.
Of course you have nothing. But at least you have it.
I'll give you one more answer to that, and that is this concept of decentralized games, or games where the game state actually lives on top of a blockchain, and the game logic lives on top of a blockchain. Another name for that are crypto native games or on-chain games. Obviously, because they live on the blockchain, they're extremely slow, right? You can't build
extremely pricey on gas fees.
Exactly. So we're definitely not in the stage where we can have a mass game on the blockchain. Yeah. But one of the interesting things is like a game like Dark Forest, which is the first big on-chain game, lives forever. So no one can stop it. It's there and you can play it. And so if you own an asset in that game, you can play it whenever you want and no one can stop you.
Yeah, but then you need to have a game on chain that lives there. If you don't, then okay. But still, you can at least look at that the NFT or whatever you have in your wallet.
Next interesting thing that happened, and I'm kind of very surprised by this, is that Voodoo said it's kind of moving into crypto, and they actually said that they have 10 games in development, which sounds to me like hyper casual games, because usually like you would focus on 1-2 games, not 10. Sounds to me like they were kind of more easier done. So implies that they are probably hyper casuals or something closer to that. And they said they're launching their own Voodoo coin by this year. So this seems like an interesting development here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys probably have better insights here than me, but as far as I see, performance marketing is becoming hard and expensive. And so the more casual side of mobile games is, trying to figure out ways to either reduce customer acquisition costs or increase LTVs. And, I think a lot of these more casual publishers are trying to see how they could potentially do that within Web3, where, find a way to have players buy into your ecosystem. So when they are sick of one game, they move to the next, but within your ecosystem. So you keep profiting from them. I would say that, I can't give details about what Voodoo is doing, but that seems like something that I think a lot of publishers are thinking about.
It's so interesting about the Voodoo because they just had a talk
Casual Studio
at
closed.
PGC. Yeah, that's first thing. Casual Studio closed, but then they had a talk at PGC last week about hyper casual being dead. Basically, hyper casual publisher talking about hyper casual being dead, and why is this happening? Well, they're moving into Web3. They're trying to move into casual and then to Bitcore as well. So now they're trying to cover their asses because they want new studios in these all segments rather than just getting more hyper casual studios. So it's just it's so funny.
I mean, hyper casual, them saying that, they're probably still earning like $1 million a day in ad
Exactly,
revenue,
exactly.
like at least.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not really dead yet, but maybe they're seeing the writing on the wall.
Is that they're not growing? And remember, they have Goldman Sachs as their investor, if I understand correctly.
But even if they are growing or staying flat, this is just again the terminology towards the new companies, or to get more casual or mid-core companies to get into their publishing wheelhouse, rather than just more hyper casual.
Could be like I think I heard the number. It was in one game industry article where forgot the name. The head of Berlin studio for Voodoo, Mr. Willing, forgot the surname, but he said that they go through 100 prototypes every month. So I guess they kill like 99 games and one goes through.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very, very kind of, you need to have the inflow of content going into it. So
yeah,
very, very big.
And why is this funny is because you read these articles out there, different blogs from different agencies, and they tell you the best tips for UA creatives, whatever, and everybody's is reading that and say, oh wow, this is great. So I just say an example. I need different creatives for different UA channels. And they say that these agencies say this because they want more fees, and they want to squeeze the game developers more because they need to now create more creatives for different channels, so they earn more money. And this is exactly the same thing. So they are now saying, oh well, hyper casual is dead, but maybe casual or mid-core might be the way to go now. Or we just open a Web3 publishing arm. Talk to us. This is exactly the same. So the motivation behind this, like them saying hyper casual is dead, is just like, come on.
Yeah. Next thing on the blog is Square Enix, which to me is much more interesting in a way because these guys are kind of a big name here in the industry, and I think it's the only, let's say, AAA developer that's really going in all guns blazing into the segment. They pretty much sold off their whole Montreal or Canada division, and I think like for 300 million or something, and they have multiple blockchain or crypto games in development. And don't know if there's anyone else. Like I know there's been, of course, Ubisoft. Zynga said that they have like a big team working on crypto.
It's pretty quiet from Zynga.
Yeah,
actually.
Nothing's come out of it there yet. Same as with Ubisoft. I think Ubisoft axed that whole thing. But yeah, like this is the last man standing, I guess, in this kind of a AAA field. So what do we think of that?
I would say I don't have any like specific insights. What I have noticed is that the perception of blockchain and games between the West and the East is kind of different. And I've noticed that in the East, consumers are like more open to it or more used to it. Here, like if you see too much pay to win, people get really angry, and there it's just normal. Or it seems to be, right? So
that's why Diablo Immortal makes 100 million in China.
There you go. Easy. So, not super surprising that the main AAA player is from the East. But I don't know exactly like their plans. I don't have much to add there.
Yeah, I would say together with Voodoo, they are pretty much like kind of a canary in the coal mine to watch what will happen with it, and others will either follow or not follow based on that. Yeah, go ahead, Felix.
No, Nico, I just wanted to ask, like, do you think like the first Web3 like absolute like hit that's going to go and actually be like really big? Do you think it's going to come from like a AAA studio that's like from Web2, or do you think it's going to come from a brand new team that's just starting fresh for Web3?
I think the latter. So I think it's going to be from a brand new studio. I think we're going to see a lot of failed experiments. I think, everyone's scrabbling to figure out how exactly, this technology adds most value. And I think you need like a fresh way of thinking. And I think odds are it's not like, especially the first will not come from a AAA. They're not going to be the innovators here. And I also don't think that AAA quality games is what's going to differentiate Web3 from Web2 games. Or like the big advantage is going to be the Web3 technology brings something that you couldn't have in a Web3 world. And, that's, I think, something that a Web2 or like a AAA company doesn't necessarily have any advantage with.
Yeah, functionality, pretty much new one.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's Board Ape Yacht Club game that was recently released called Dookie Dash, if I read that right.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
about you going down a sewer
Mhm.
and finding keys which you can upgrade your NFTs with. Or if I understand correctly, it's more of a kind of a keeping the community hype up product. So it's kind of for the fan base, not really like their output of their famous MMO that they're working on. But still, like, of course, like the thing that I put there is from Kotaku, so the main gaming press is not impressed, let's say.
Of course.
Slightly.
They're not impressed by mobile games as well. So
Yeah, but that's just for illustrations.
These
but
guys are
to
never happy,
me,
man.
yeah, but for me, it seems that this is kind of even too simplish for me in a way that, like, of course you need to throw some bone to the community to like tell them that you're still living, you're doing something with it, but still, like, I guess you could go a little bit more with that big of a budget that you have at your disposal.
but
Don't know
why? Why? This is, I guess, this is enough for the community. Or maybe it's not enough, but it's just something that they can play around with, and then wait for the big launch.
You mean the like prolonging time until the big crash?
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Dude, no, man. Stop.
I think I'm not a big fan of Bored Apes and what they're doing. I think it's too much predicated around, buy assets and then maximize the value, and it's too much speculative and not enough games focused. I think their Dookie Dash is, I would call it a gamified whitelist. So they have a mint upcoming, and instead of being like a first come first served that could potentially be botted or essentially abused, I think they've just slapped a game on it, a simple game where it's about if you perform well, you make a chance to be on the whitelist. So I think in essence, I don't have anything against it. I haven't tried the game myself, but yeah, I don't think it's necessarily an attempt for them to like keep their price up, although they should. I think keeping the price up is probably like more done by hype and promises than by actually putting a game out there. But I do like the fact that they're at least using games to do something else than engage in our Discord and like type a lot of GMs every morning. So yeah.
Yeah, that's I agree with that. Yeah, the big question that I already had on my mind for the whole thing was like, where will all the raised money go from last year? And this is like the very big one for me, because just some numbers. I found this kind of footprint analytics thing that was done 30th of December last year, where they had some kind of a really nice write up, and some of the prominent names even in the recent history what they raised. But like one of the big numbers was that in 2021 there were around 5.5 billion invested into the space, and now it decreased in 3.7 billion in 2022,
Which is
So-
still a lot of money.
yeah, which is still a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's going a little bit down. Biggest kind of VCs that they mentioned that are stuff like Animoca Brands with like 61 projects, Infinity Ventures Crypto 30 projects, Shima Capital 29 projects, and then the latest kind of raises were Theorycraft with 50 million B round, Horizon Blockchain Games with 40 million round, and Phoenix Games, which, if I understood, split from Mythical Games, like the whole C team pretty much founded that and get like 150 million, and I think they're in a lawsuit with the previous company already.
Well, yeah.
But still, like, this was done like what, December or November?
Yeah, it's pretty fresh.
At the end, 150 million, so that's pretty big. And there's, of course, like a lot of I wouldn't even
different games and different gaming companies. And
those are not gaming founds. Like the biggest one, for instance, the Helm Ventures from like Katie Holm, the founder of Coinbase, with like 1.5 billion, and the list goes on with pretty much like ridiculously high numbers. So where's this capital flowing currently? Where it cannot sit there because there's big inflation currently happening.
What do you mean? We are in a bear markets. Everybody's building everything.
Are they?
I don't know. Everybody's talking about it. Like, now is the time to build. I
can tell you as an investor, there are still founders that are starting new companies and raising early stage rounds. There are still founders needing follow-up capital, actually quite a few, and a lot of them are struggling. So there's definitely places to deploy this capital, and I would say that all of these funds are probably in a pretty good place because they have the money, and the valuations are significantly lower than where they were a year or a year and a half ago. One thing to keep in mind is that there has been an enormous amount of wealth creation within the crypto space, right? A lot of people suddenly got really rich just because they were lucky enough to discover Bitcoin and ETH early, right? And
exactly, and the other half got kind of poor.
Yes, exactly. The ones that were too late got poor. The ones that made some stupid decisions got poor. 100%. Interestingly, a lot of these people that got into Bitcoin early are not willing to admit to themselves that they were just lucky, right? And they think they're really smart. They're like, I saw this and I held this and I'm I'm a good investor, And so there's a lot of these. I mean, I don't want to not everyone in the space is like this, right? But a lot of people suddenly saw themselves become millionaires, and I think a lot of them actually committed capital to these funds, because these funds, like if you say, "Oh, I raised a $1 billion fund," it doesn't mean that you have $1 billion in your bank account. You do capital calls over
over
a certain
period of time.
Exactly. And so usually that's like 2 years, 3 years, something like that. And then every quarter you ask for a bit of money until you get your total amount. And so there is a risk, and I'm sure that if we sum up all of the funds that were raised within crypto, especially the more crypto native funds that will be invested in by the more the degens that got really lucky, those might struggle getting all of the capital that was committed. And I think every realistic web crypto native fund will probably have to discount their funds by a good margin.
Nice.
Like, I would say it's kind of definitely some, as Matej said, like some people are still building, like Gabe Layden and like all these other kind of prominent games. But I would say a lot of people are kind of struggling that didn't kind of cover their budgets for the winter, or let's say didn't raise enough. So there will be, I guess, a lot of consolidation.
That's their problem.
Yeah. But the interesting part that I see here is that if you look at all these raises, the latest ones, they are all either kind of ex-AAA people or AAA is behind the raises. So that's like one of the big questions for me, that if AAA is still kind of, holding their ticket, that this lottery can still go on. Let's still allocate money into it. Because I guess they're struggling still in a way. For instance, like we saw this week, where EA pretty much canceled Apex, Battlefield, and like a lot of their mobile inventory. So they are still kind of looking for that new platform. But it seems to me that it's more of a, like, I wouldn't say that people should be waiting for some kind of a big crash or something. It's more of a like this thing will die down rather than move up, because I still don't see any kind of like fundamental that will move this, especially now that we have the new guidelines which prohibits the biggest distribution channels, which are mobiles.
Felix, do you want to stop him or should I? Because he already asked two questions.
I was just about to cut him off.
Two questions, and I was like,
seriously,
Nico already was trying to answer, and then he.
Sorry, went on a little rant there.
You did.
What do you want to talk about, Jakub?
No.
Yeah, like, do you think that this kind of a whole AAA move into it, as you said, like if it's not coming from AAA, so let's buy someone that will do it for us as AAA, like if this is
so
warranted?
if you look at, for example, Bitcraft's portfolio and the companies that we invested in our crypto fund, you'll see that 90% plus of them actually have like AAA or at least like a deep experience within the games industry. And so, I think saying that AAA is not what will be making the big innovation here. By that, when I say that, I mean that the AAA, the publishers themselves or the companies themselves will not do that. But people that worked in AAA might be the ones that really understand game design and really know what they can do or are inspired by what this new technology brings. I also feel, and this is surprising to me, because I felt like during these months just after the FTX crash, when the general public was really down on what Web3 can bring to games, we would see the whole industry follow. But I'm still surprised with how many crypto things I see at Pocket Gamer in London. GDC is still going to have like a significant Web3 presence. And so it seems like the industry themselves maybe had some sort of allergic reaction to all of the hype and is now just more chill about it and just be like, oh yeah, we might be able to do something cool here.
No, 100%. It was like all about the hype and speculation last year. Now, when the FTX crashed, like people start to realize, okay, well, we might be a little bit cautious, but it's still happening. Like I said at the beginning, like this is not going anywhere. This is here, and it's
staying.
Count with it.
Yeah. I don't think so. It will go anywhere. I think it will stay because it's kind of the technology works. It's like how you use it. That's the main thing around it. The bigger problem now that I would see is that it can kind of get overshadowed by other more prominent technologies such as AI this year, because that's the buzzword to go to currently.
Sure, of course.
Yeah,
but it's again, if you're speculating, then you will find just another buzzword next year.
Yeah, and I would say just like over the past couple of years, we've seen blockchain pushed into things where it didn't belong. Over the next year, we'll see AI being pushed into places where it doesn't belong, right?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just people being stupid and trying shit they shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
But
but they can. That's the problem. They can.
I mean, yeah, they can do whatever the hell they want. I'm just not going to give them my money,
Yeah, 100%.
Should we? We're coming close to an hour. Should we wrap up?
Yeah. No, I think. I think there's like one interesting question that was in the prep doc, which is in 2023. We should be seeing some like really interesting blockchain games global launches because, well, that's what you should mention. Jakub was also. Companies raised money. They worked on the game. Now we should be seeing first, and well, let's see how many of them. So, is there any game you're actually excited about the most?
Such a hard question.
I know.
It's a bit like what's your favorite child? It's
really hard for me to answer that,
right?
True.
No, I think there's a bunch. So okay, I'll give you one, and it's one of the companies that we invested in. It's a company called Magic Cave, and I don't know if you saw that. Again, gaming industry veterans, and they're building a games ecosystem around like NFTs that are like toys. And so they're initially working with like dice NFTs that you can use within different games. And what they're doing is really cool. And it looks beautiful. And it's these things where, you would want to have them physically because they look so good and you truly own them because they're blockchain based. So that's one of them that I'm really excited about.
Nice.
Sounds like Skylanders a little bit to me.
I have no idea. The
Activision one, the toys one that are kind of physical and both digital.
Yes, I think I know what you mean. It is, I would say it is similar, although I don't think they're starting with AR anyway soon. And it's more like Dungeons and Dragons focused, where it's not like D6, but you have like
Dungeons and Dragons. That's a good niche to go after.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I think we could be here for another hour at least. And talk
with Jakub
about
roasting me and asking me all these tough questions.
Yeah, very good answers.
Like
I learned a lot.
Man. No, it's great.
Super good session. Yeah.
Even better than the last one. Also, well, we improved as well as a as a podcast a little bit. But yeah, okay. Let's call it here. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Please. Continue subscribing. I'll put Nico's email address in the show notes so you can text him about getting an investment. And see you next week in Barcelona. Thanks, Nico, for coming.
Yeah. Thanks much, Nico.
Pleasure.
Really, really good.